to this week's science lesson. Now, this week we are going to be talking about classes of animals. We're going to classify animals based on what makes one class of animals different from another. So what does make one class of animals different from another? Look at the animals in this picture here. Now, what makes these animals different from each other? Today you will need your science notebook and a pencil. And the first thing I want you to do in your science notebook is I want you to take a look at these animals. And I just want you to notice, see if you can find 3 differences between these animals. So not what these animals are called. I see a shark and a zebra and an alligator and an amphibian and a kangaroo and a parrot. Don't just name them, but what makes them different from each other? So if you need to pause, go ahead. And again, the name of today's lesson is Classification of Animals. So make sure you've got that written on the top of your page. And then take a look at these animals and think about what are 3 things that make these animals different. All right. So some of the things that we notice that make these animals different is, for example, the alligator on the bottom. It has scales. I see an animal here with gills and scales. I see an animal here with fur. I see an animal here with feathers. There are many things that make animals different. We call the things that make animals different their characteristics. Characteristics are things that make animals unique. Let's take a look at some different classes of animals here and what makes them unique. What makes a bird unique? What makes a bird different than other animals? Well, a bird has feathers. That's the first thing we can see. A bird lays eggs. Birds usually care for their young and their babies. These are things that make a bird unique. What's another? While we're looking at these classes of animals in your science notebook, just make sure to write down these 6 main classes of animals. Now, this week we're only going to be looking at animals that are called vertebrates. Those are animals that have a backbone. So we're not going to be looking at insects this week or clams or squid. This week we're just looking at animals with backbones, vertebrates. So write down bird. That's one of the classes of animals. What makes a fish unique? Or rather, what makes an amphibian unique? Let's see. An amphibian, while it lays its eggs in the water, that's unique. It doesn't have scales. How about a fish? What makes a fish unique? A fish also lays its eggs in the water. It does have scales. And a fish breathes with gills. That's what makes a fish unique. Let's see here. What makes a mammal unique and different than a bird? What makes a reptile different than a fish? Well, these are examples of characteristics, the things that make these classes of animals different. Now, notice here, we're not looking at the species. I mean, there are many different kinds of mammals. There's zebras and lions and humans and bats. Those are all types of mammals. We're going to group all of those mammals together and just think about what makes those mammals similar and what makes mammals different than birds. Now, characteristics can include, let's take a look at this. You want you to write this down in your notes. This is something you will want to have for reference later. Characteristics can include the body covering, for example, scales, feather, fur, birth and care of young. Do they lay eggs? Do they take care of their babies? Cardiovascular system, what kind of heart do they have? How many chambers are in their heart? Communication, how do they communicate with other members of the species? Do they use echolocation like a whale? Do they whistle like a bird? Locomotion, how they move. Do they slither? Do they fly? Do they swim? Do they run? Respiration, how do they get oxygen into their blood? Do they breathe? Does their gills pull oxygen from the water? Do they absorb oxygen through their skin? And finally, their skeletal structure. What is their skeleton like? What are their bones like? Are they hollow like a bird's so they can fly? Are they thick and dense so that they can run like a mammal? Those are the characteristics of an animal. So this week, you're going to be making a game, and I'm going to play this game with you. It's called the Who Am I game. Now, with the Who Am I game, you're going to ask a partner a series of questions. You're actually going to make the game first, and the game that you make is going to ask these questions. Now, I'm going to give you a template so you can make it as a slideshow, but you can make this as a book, you can make it as a board game, you can make this game however you want. The important thing here is that you're going to take facts. You're going to take the facts from the characteristics of classes of animals. We have a folder that has the characteristics of all the classes. And you're going to take those facts and you're going to turn them into questions. So I'm going to play the game here with you. I'm also going to walk through just a little bit about how you might make the game. So the first question here is, my body is covered in feathers for flight and staying warm. So whatever this class of animals is, it has feathers for flying and or staying warm. This class of animals breathes air with its lungs. This class of animals lays hard-shelled eggs, and this class of animals cares for its young by bringing them food. This class of animals has a heart with 4 chambers that keep its body at a constant temperature, so it's warm-blooded. And this class of animals can communicate by song and can communicate with displays of its feathers. What class of animals do you think this is? Let's take a look. Who am I? I am a bird. That's the class of animals, a bird. So what we've done here is we've taken the facts. Now the facts about the bird might sound something like, birds are covered in feathers for flight and staying warm. Birds breathe air with their lungs. Birds lay hard-shelled eggs. They care for their young. Notice here that I'm turning those facts, I'm restating those facts as questions. So oftentimes we restate, we take part of a fact and we switch it around into our own words. So here we're really practicing writing in our own words, we're practicing writing in full sentences, and we're switching that noun, birds, for pronouns like me or my or I. We're switching it from talking about birds to talking about myself. We're pretending we're a bird, and we're asking, who am I? And the last thing we'll do in our slideshow or game or whatever we're going to make is we'll include lots of examples of that class of animals. So notice, you are not doing, owls is not a class. Owls is a species. Owls are one type of birds. Toucans is a species. It is not a class. Penguins is a species. You're not doing this about one species. You're doing it about the whole class of birds. I want to be very specific. So you cannot say, who am I? You would not say, who am I? Cheetahs. That is a species. No, a cheetah is a mammal. So you have to be I'm going to be very specific here about choosing a class, not one species of animal within that class. But here we see there are many different examples of birds. Looks like I see some sort of heron and a blue jay. I see a penguin and a toucan, an owl, some sort of songbird on top. And at the end of your slideshow, I want you to include many different examples of that class. And if you can, the best thing here is to show how different species can be within that class. A species is one particular type of animal, but a class represents a bunch of different animals that have similar characteristics. For example, these all have feathers or lay eggs. So at the end of your slideshow, include lots of pictures, lots of different pictures that show a variety of animals in that class. So for your follow-up work, this is what I just described. Rewrite from the third person point of view to the first person. So instead of saying fish do not have voice boxes, you'd say, I don't have a voice box. However, I seem to be able to communicate. So choose at least 5 characteristics for each animal, all the characteristics, and end your page with who am I? And then at the last page, reveal which class of animals it is. And include lots of fun pictures. So I'm gonna push you to try to do more than one class of animals. See if you can do all the classes of animals. That's a big challenge. But try to do maybe 3 classes of animals. I think that would be a good challenge for everyone to try. And again, remember, you can make a slideshow, but you don't have to. If you want to try to make a board game or some other type of game, you can. Have a lot of fun with this. I can't wait to play your games.